and culture. So my awareness is backed up by this policy and education awareness on the negative impacts of drugs and alcohol abuse and addiction on the lives of young people, that we need to employ them or keep them occupied through music, drama, or poster displays, doing sports organizations or occasions, and church-led youth programs. So these are some of the programs that this policy captures that we need to engage our young people. So once our young people are engaged, they have no time for the mischiefs that are happening. And through the negative impacts that young people have gone through, we've seen positive results. And today we're going to talk about some of their successful stories. So drug and alcohol is affecting mental health, and as a result, we have a big problem in Papua New Guinea today. So in my presentation, I'll be talking about the definition of drug, homebrew, marijuana and their effects, mental health issues, together with the statistics of what marijuana has done to our young people, and we look at a way forward. So first of all, let me walk you through session 1, and this is the definition of drugs and the common abuse drugs and the international drugs. So firstly, I want to talk to you about the definition of drugs. Now, drug is a dangerous weapon today that has crept into our country, and our young people have been the victims of drug and alcohol. So we've seen the international drugs creep into our country. We have methamphetamine that came in and has been produced in Papua New Guinea. We have cocaine being brought from Asia and dropped in the sea of Budi Budi in Milne Bay province. And we've seen cocaine being manufactured in Papua New Guinea and was about to be uplifted in Papua, but unfortunately they were being caught because the laws in Papua New Guinea are not stringent, are not tough enough, and we have gone over time to amend our laws. People from other countries take advantage of strict laws, and they use Papua New Guinea as a dumping zone. So over the borders we have the date rape drugs that are already in our country, and we also have other drugs as well. The other sexual enhancements have been brought into this country. So most of the time our young people are engaged because they are not being given opportunity. So you as youth leaders and coordinators in this conference or in this workshop have to be made known of what these drugs are doing. So any chemical substances, whether natural, grown through soil, or man-made, which they call synthetic, that when consumed or taken into the body by the individual, it alters and may change in mind. More body function, or what we call the brain structure, and the body functions are being altered. So when it alters the brain, the reaction happens and it affects the body functions. So as we go through, you will see the effects of drugs that are happening to our bodies today. So that's a definition of drug, whether it can be man-made it can be natural, but when taken into the body, it causes changes. That is the reason why our young people today who take the cheap alcohol, what happens in your community? Destruction, huh? So that is a classic example of what's happening. Once these substances are taken into the body, there's a change, and we have the problem that are happening in our community. So I have no offense to the alcohol companies, but it's just that the problem starts with you and I, the people. That is the reason why we say people problem, drug problem. Why? Because we have not been trained, we have not been educated. That is the reason why we make the wrong decisions and we get involved in such activities and we cause disturbance to our community. And we break it down now from those man-made and natural drugs that we were talking about. We have man-made and the natural ones. There are two types of drugs. One type headlong you pen. You go to the pharmacy and what do you get? Panadol. So that is called the medicinal drug, or what we call the pharmaceuticals. So that's a substance intended for use. Why? Headlong you pen, or suppose you got sewer, you get antibiotic or you get amoxicillin, and it goes through the body and it causes a change, and therefore the soul begins to heal. So it's intended for a purpose, and that's to diagnose, that's to cure, that's to treat, and to prevent other bacteria from going into your body. So the medicinal drug is of great use because ameliorating body unit. So the body function will now run smoothly because there are substances that help our physical body, and we can see the healing process taking place. The other one are the drugs that are not for intentional use. Drugs that are not medically accepted. So we call those drugs the non-pharmaceuticals. Why we call them non-pharmaceutical is they're not beneficial for the body. Is kerosene beneficial to the body? No. So it is a non-pharmaceutical. So those drugs that are taken just to help the body, or what we call a coping mechanism to the body, are for recreational purpose. So that drug, it acts in the central nervous system of the body, and it causes changes. The mood, the conscience, the cognition, or the behavior. So this simply happens because things that are not beneficial for the body, it goes up to the brain and it alters the brain. It causes changes in the brain. That is the reason why the brain structure is being altered. And the wrong signal comes to the body and we have problems in the community. So I will touch a little bit on that when we go through the body parts, and we will see why problems happen. But I can tell you now that when we take drugs that are non-beneficial, it goes into our body and it stops the nerves or the cells, and there's not enough power to the brain. So when there's less energy to the brain, the more stupid we become. Now fight come up busna kibo, tamyo kibo, and bottles, sticks and stones. We have boom boxes, and we have a lot of problem in our communities. So our young people who are under the age of 25 and who take their first drug use, especially marijuana, 25% to 50% chances of becoming addicts of narcotics or addicts of marijuana. Because the brain is still under construction. So that is the reason why we have those problems. So the types of drugs that we see, drugs that are legal are the ones that the government has authorized. Therefore, when you are sick, the doctor, after the examinations, he prescribes the right medicine to give you, and you go to the pharmacy and you get the medicines that have been approved, or you get them over the counter. But those that are illegal are the ones that government itokango, or it's prohibited by the government. So the manufacturing or the sale of 1-pack and 5-pack, cultivating and the possession of drugs, these are all been prohibited by the government. So that's the reason why the government is so, we're now looking at how we can stop these drugs from entering our country. I know marijuana is a never-ending battle, but we need to try our very best as Christians to stop this. It has medical purposes for it, but today we abuse that. In Australia, it's now used for medicinal purposes when it comes to epilepsy. Instead of using the phenobarbital to stop the seizures because of the impulse in the brain, instead of using phenobarbital, they now use the medical marijuana. Why they use it is because the poison in the marijuana has been extracted. So today in Papua New Guinea, our boys and girls and even bigger people are smoking the marijuana that has tetrahydrocannabinol inside. So as we go through, tetrahydrocannabinol is the powerful constitution or the ingredient in the marijuana. So we will go through it very shortly. These are the types of drug users. We have experimenters today in the school-age population. We see that our young people are now looking at marijuana and he floats, he feels high, and they want to be like those. So they want to see and experiment. So last week with Papua New Guinea High Performance Sports, PNG High Performance Sports, we're now trying to go into the secondary schools and primary schools and look at talents of the young people and giving them an opportunity. We have a School of Excellence where we want to identify those talents. It's a talent identification program that we want to see these young talents and start getting them into serious training, giving them the best diet, giving them international exposure, and preparing them for Papua New Guinea's the PNG Games, the regional youth games, and also giving them an opportunity to go overseas and be involved in sports. And one of the successful stories that through the partnership between my organization, National Youth Development Authority, and Papua New Guinea Sports Foundation is Mai Koime. Mai Koime came from the highlands of Papua New Guinea through Jiwaka. And the sad thing is that she had the stamina, she had the power to run. But English was not good for her. But through the coachings and the trainings and all of this helped her to progress well. And today, my Koime is someone who can speak English fluently. So we got some young people who were good, just like legendary Marcus Barry. He was so powerful, but no contribute to run website or pitching, and he found it hard to contribute. And Melbourne Storms were telling him, you better contribute your ideas. But because he was able to go through proper school and inside of English. So that is the reason why through these programs we want to go through the school, let the young people get educated through the academics, but through sports we will see their talent and sort of give them a push. So the facilities are here to train all our young people, and they go through the talent identification program. So these are some of the things that we want to do to stop drugs and alcohol, because today cheap alcohol is just sold at 20 kina, and it's affordable for our young people. Do you see the school age population taking alcohol today in your province?
Yes.
So as parents, we've got a big work to do. As a church, we've got a big work to do. So we've got recreational users who get high with friends on special occasions. That is the reason why we have conducted the education programs in our community schools, our primary schools. And because I trained the juveniles in Bomana, in prison, so I've taken the prisoners down to go to the schools and talk to their peers. And we've seen that the cult activities, there is a system that is going on within the school age population, which is called scaling bros, which is a big problem. That the grade 12s pass a generational went down to the grade 11s. So they go through that program or this like initiation called scaling bros, or you punch in bros for number one and they give him the name. So I didn't know all of this until I trained a boy in two students from, one was from Dalhousie Secondary and one was from Sogeri. Through drinking firewater, he drank and he got overdrunk, and his friend was teasing him, and he thought that that was a branch, but in actual fact that was an iron rod. So spark it. He got it and he hit his friend's head, and he didn't know that he broke the skull of his friend with the iron rod. And he served time in Bomana, and he served about 16 years, and then, not 16 years, more than 7 years. He went on to parole and he's been released. I'll show his photo to you, and I've taken him around to the school. So the cult activity that he was involved in was called Devil Beloved Youth, which means that they go through some process and then they give that wet down. So once you get into that group, you are secured. Any school fights that happen, you have a group that will fight and support you. So these are the problems that are happening with our young people. And because I deal with a lot of young people, a lot of young people from prison come down and we help them with their references. And we try to go and talk to the communities, reintegrating them into the community so that the problems that they've done in their community, we go and talk to the leaders. Oh, we brought this boy from Koilala. So we want you guys to accept him back. He's already served time. And with the peer education program that we are doing, we want to integrate him back into the community. He will not be a criminal all of his life. He came from the community. We need to bring him back to the community, and he needs to make a change. Time to rascal and finish now. So these are the programs that we have carried out, and we've seen a lot of young people go through. But the setback is that because they have done very serious crime, and the problem is through the fingerprint. So that is the reason why we are looking at how best the churches, the government organizations can come, and we can look at a better way for these young people. And we call them the agents of change, because through the crime prevention programs that we are doing, these young people are the one they are telling their peers that don't come to prison. Because when you come to prison, you have a biscuit and you have cold water for breakfast. And one oxen farm or one tin fish is shared among 8 people. And whether the rice is cooked or not cooked properly, you just have to eat it. And you have to get up and start cutting grass, whether you like it or not. So life in prison is very hard. That's the reason why we tell these people to talk to their peers. And with the government support, with other NGOs coming in, we want to see changes happen. That's the reason why we are focused on helping young people. So regular users is one, that these young people like to be in that episode that they like to take drug. And dependent users are the ones who always depend on drugs. In whatever little work they do, they want to be dependent on that, so that that feeling will be with them. So these are the types of drug users we have. Let me just crack a joke here. This particular boy is a drug user. So he came with his friends, and then he was in somewhere in a province, and he came to Port Moresby. So they were smoking marijuana, and he got up and he told his friends. He pulled it and one time he come to Moresby. So his friend got up and told him. He gave it to him. December you come to Moresby, you know. That's how you. So he got up now. True, eh? December me come. And then he got up now, gave it back to his friend and said, you fall stuff. So his friend was, no, but me confused. Me too much January me come. January or? Yeah, January me come? No. You come to December. No. We come to January. No, January. Next month I want to. Next month and February, behind the February and March. So you can see that some things are very wrong. If you talk to elementary, say January, February, March. But when marijuana has touched the cells of the brain, there is a change that happens. January, February, March become. Okay, that's just a small joke there. The international drugs, most of these drugs are already found in Papua New Guinea. Well, cannabis is already in most parts of Papua New Guinea. Ecstasy, not really. Cocaine in Papua New Guinea. Heroin in Papua New Guinea. Methamphetamine in Papua New Guinea. And the gamma butyrate hydroxy is the date rate drug that is in Papua New Guinea. So we had one problem, and there was a taxi driver who got this Spanish fly. It's a sexual date rape drug. And what he did, he tricked a girl and said, oh, you go buy and drink. She was holding a drink. So he said, oh, you go kisim tu more drink na ka. So what he did, he just threw that small, very small, tiny capsule into that, and it dissolves fast. So there was a problem that happened. He took the girl and raped that girl. Why? Because this sexual date rape drug, once it gets into the body, it clouds the cerebellum of the brain. The hippocampus as well, it shuts down. Your eyes get slanty, you get sleepy, you become weak or bony slack, and it rises up the libido, the desire to have sex, and that is the reason why these things happen. So, Badili police and I have worked together and we've identified this drug, but the sad thing is that this drug will cause memories to lose. that is the reason why most of the perpetrators, when they go to court, they're scot-free out. Why? Because the victim cannot think back of what really happened. So these are the drugs that are already in Papua New Guinea, and they've been sold in the nightclubs. So we've been encouraging our young girls to talk to students from Caritas, Maranville, that mothers make the nation. And I told them that the IQ of the next Prime Minister and the next Chief Justice of Papua New Guinea will be incubated in your womb. So young girls, you make the nation. The IQ of Papua New Guinea is in you, mothers. You, Sabian stuck inside of you. And you are the one that is going to bring the next Prime Minister, the next judge, the next lawyer. So it is very important that we encourage our young people to be very careful of what they do. So the date rape drug is one of them. That's already in our country. Rohypnol or rupees is around, it's taken over the border, and they call that the aphrodisiac. Aphrodisiac is a food or drink that causes the sexual desire to rise. So this is a very dangerous thing that is happening, and you look at what evil forces are doing now, and it has affected most of our people in Papua New Guinea. So your body can stand almost anything, but it's your mind that you have to convince. That's why I said people problem is the drug problem. Drugs are here, but the drug will not stand up and say, Lawrence, here I am. It's your mind that will convince you to say, go smoking marijuana. You put a gun, you put a criminal, and you put a policeman. And he's stealing 1,000 kina and trying to run away, and the policeman said, gun, get up and kill him. The gun will not fire. You have to get the gun and shoot. So it is men who create the problem. It is women who create the problem. That is the reason why we have all of these problems in Papua New Guinea. It's people problem, drug problem, violence against women. All the problems that you see today is because of the mind. So this is the powerhouse. Am I talking too fast, or everyone's got something to say? All right, Okay, marijuana. What actually is marijuana? So marijuana grows in Papua New Guinea, 1 meter, 2 meter, and according to the Controlled Substance Act, it is the dangerous drug, and that is the reason why they put it in the first schedule, because they have found out that it is a non-beneficial drug. But as the study is going on, they are now beginning to see that it is good for people with epilepsy. So today, there are medicines being made out from marijuana. Setivex is one of them. Nebulong is one of them from marijuana, because they're extracting the poisonous ingredient out of marijuana, and it becomes cannabidiol. Cannabidiol is that doesn't have poison inside. So that is the reason why it becomes medical marijuana. So no currently accepted medical use. You have to get a prescription in overseas, especially in Australia, to have treatment or access to the medical marijuana. So it has been accepted, but here in Papua New Guinea we have not, because we have a big battle here, because there are some organizations who want this plant to be grown and exported for commercialization to to bring money into Papua New Guinea. So there is a controversy happening. There are some people who want this to happen, so it's been debated. So it is a never-ending battle here. The reason being is because it's pretty hard to study. So we got a big problem here. It is a chemical factory of its own, and it contains 488 chemicals. The marijuana that we have, it comes from three species. We have sativa, which is the one that we have in Papua New Guinea. We have indica, which is found in other parts of the world, and rhodolithium. So this comes from the cannabis from a tree or the plant called cannabis, and then from cannabis, the branch or the family, and it has three species. So sativa is the dangerous species, which has 480 chemicals, and it has other synthetics or other supporting drugs. So what happens is this drug, when it goes into the body, it affects the appetite. That's why my cousin, he can finish a pot of rice with Boston. I don't know how. But I've seen and said, hey man, oh, it's like that too. So marijuana affects the appetite, your sensation, the mood, the memory, even pain. Why? Because it goes through our body. Once it's puffed, it goes through the trachea, the windpipe, and the lung sac are the ones that absorb it. They suck it in. And from there, it goes up to the brain. And from the brain, it causes, it impacts the brain. So we have the blood-brain barrier. Our brain is very sensitive where it needs to stop other foreign elements. But marijuana penetrates through the blood-brain barrier, and it affects the natural brain chemicals. And one of the neurotransmission or the transmission in our brain is called the anandamide. Anandamide is the natural chemical that transfers information from the brain to the body. So mine will say, lift your hands up. Why? Because the brain is clear. And when this substance go and overpower the brain, it takes some people long